evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in Guyana over the past week or so. And as is the norm, we always have a packed agenda of issues to discuss. I want to begin by welcoming our viewers who are joining us on television from region number 5 and region number 6. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. To our listeners and viewers who are joining us from Freedom Radio Georgetown, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And of course, to the tens of thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live right across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and beyond. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Share the program. Share the live, whether you're looking at the program on your phone, on your computer, on your iPad, on your tablet, or whatever device you are viewing the program on. Press that share button on that device. Share the program so that your friends and your fans and your followers can join us in tonight's discussion. Sharda Karu, Leslie Mongal, Anjali Ramjag, Kevin Samaru, Mohammed Zakir Yusuf, Pam Singh, Nick Narain, and so many of you. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News, and share the program so that all your friends and followers can join us in tonight's discussion. Also, use the comment section to express your views, ask your questions, raise your queries so that I can see it and we can discuss. I want this program to be a discussion forum. As I normally say, this program is dedicated towards educating us. It's a program that is intended to share knowledge. I must learn from you, and hopefully you learn from me. So share the program so that all of us and many of us can get the program as wide and as far as possible, and we can engage with each other. Last week, I wasn't able to be part of the program or be on the program because I was attending a law conference hosted by the Caribbean Court of Justice Academy for Law in Trinidad and Tobago at the Hyatt Regency Hotel. It was a huge conference attended by obviously the judges of the Caribbean Court of Justice, as well as many heads of judiciaries across the Caribbean, many judges of high courts, many magistrates, many academics lecturing at various campuses at universities across the region, many lawyers across the region, and many ministers of government. And I was amazed to learn how many of these persons look at this program. I was pleasantly surprised to meet one person after another from one end of the Caribbean to the other end of the Caribbean, informing me that they view this program on YouTube and on the Facebook platform. They follow in our discussions, and I want to take this opportunity to thank them for their viewership, and I encourage them to continue to share this program with us and among their friends and followers. And as I am on that conference, I suppose an official statement detailing the declaration of that conference would be released in due course. But the conference discussed major developments in the legal arena of the Caribbean and highlighted some crucial areas that the CCJ is encouraging governments to implement legislation to address and policies to address. The conference gave great guidance to judges and to courts across the region, as well as gave important guidance to the legal profession as well as leaders across the Caribbean. At some point in time, when the declaration is issued emanating from the conference, I will go into greater details on this program, but I don't want to preempt a formal declaration emanating from the conference being disseminated. So I will await on that declaration to be formally made by the organizer of that conference. That is the Caribbean Court of Justice Academy for Law. I want to spend some time tonight to discuss an issue that has excited some discussions in the public domain, and it is in relation to the commencement by the government of the distribution of the digital identity card. You will recall that the last Parliament passed two pieces of very important legislation. The Digital Identity Card Act and the Data Protection Act. Those two pieces of legislation demonstrate our government's vision and commitment to digitization and using data and digitization in the transformational developmental trajectory that the government has embarked upon in Guyana. We know that data accumulation and use, and we know that digitization are fundamental tools that have been used in modern times by many countries and are being used to inform policies, inform strategies, inform developmental agendas, and inform economic, social, and infrastructural transformation. And Guyana intends to employ these vital tools utilized by first world countries as we embark upon our developmental agenda for this country. And it is against that backdrop that we decided to install in Guyana the necessary legislative framework that will cradle the use, that will cradle and regulate the use of data and the implementation of the digitization process which we intend to embark upon. These two pieces of legislation have been hailed as modern, as visionary, and as containing all the protective safeguards that are necessary in relation to legislation of their type. In fact, when I spoke in the National Assembly, I made reference to an expert from Barbados who wrote in the Barbados Nation an article saluting the Guyana's Data Protection Act. So that's the first point I want to make. The government laying a modern foundation and having the vision to recognize these as important tools to use in the developmental agenda and laying the foundation for the proper employment and to ensure that data collected are adequately safeguarded by the most modern statutory protection. Both pieces of legislation have in them commencement orders, and neither of the commencement orders in either of the legislation have been brought into force. The reason why the mechanism of a commencement order was used in each legislation is because it was recognized that these are complex legislation. They create complex administrative apparatus within them. They have a multi-tier governing structure and a huge regulatory framework, all of which are required to be in place before the legislation come into force. This area is relatively modern. Few persons are trained in these very specialized fields of activity. And they are concepts and processes that are new to Guyana. All of that being said, to make the point that time is required and a lot of preparation must be done before these legislation are operationalized. And I wish to assure you that the government is moving with every convenient urgency to ensure that the requisite mechanisms are in place, the human resources duly qualified are in place, the relevant infrastructure are in place before the legislation are brought into force. These legislation require centers to be established from one end of Guyana to the other in every administrative region. And each center and sub-center, as the case may be, will have to be equipped with equipment, technical machinery, equipment, and personnel qualified and trained to function in these centers and operate the processes in these centers. This is not an easy task. But, as I said, every effort is being made to accelerate these preparatory processes urgently and to complete them. The government decided to, in a limited way, begin the distribution of the digital ID cards to state employees and to input a certain quantity of data into these cards. It was explained that the legislation governing the data and the card are not in place. The persons who were invited to participate in this process were told that they don't have to participate if they wish not to, because the law is not in force. That when the law comes into force, then everyone will be compelled or compellable by law to participate. In other words, the participation of the process at this initial stage was based upon voluntariness. And secondly, the data collected was of a particular type that is already in the public information system. So data such as names, addresses, ID card numbers, national ID card numbers, passport numbers, TIN numbers, photograph, driver license numbers, marriage certificates, birth certificates, depots, are all information that are already in the public information system of this country. You can go to public agencies and get this type of information. This is not private, peculiar information. So, no personal medical data, personal information data, personal financial data, such as bank accounts and medical information, as I said, and those types of peculiar personal data have been uplifted from anyone. And as I said, every person was offered the opportunity to refuse to participate in the process. Once all the processes are in place and the personnel are in place and the mechanism to administer the full implementation of the legislation are in place, then the legislation will be brought into force and these processes will be unfolded in accordance with the law. And then it becomes obligatory on every citizen to become part of the process. Against that backdrop, therefore, the fears that I see being expressed by the APNU and by some commentators in the media are, I dare say, unfounded, without basis, and polluted by politics. The data that is currently being taken from citizens are data that are available in the public domain and accessible by the government in any event. So this fear that the government is accumulating data and will misuse the data and will manipulate the data for ulterior design and purposes is one that is without basis and unfounded. The government has access to this information anyhow through the various state agencies. Not that the government will ever, at least not our government, will want to take, what use will we make of your passport number? What use will we make of your driver's license number? Those are information that any person, governments have access to those types of information. What the government is not, what the process is not taking from citizens are the type of information that are deeply personal and that laws, data protection laws are passed to protect. It's not this type of information that's publicly available. And that's why I say that those who are making these comments either don't understand what data protection is about and they don't understand the type of data that laws normally protect, or they're just being disingenuous. So I thought that I would express those views and put to rest, or try to put to rest, some of these apprehensions that persons are conjuring up in people's minds. Another issue that I see that has provoked some amount of discussions and commentary in the public domain is the recently announced policy regarding tints for motor vehicles. Now, let me say that the government has already signaled that reforms are going to be made in relation to road traffic laws and regulations because the spate of accidents on our roads, the spate of fatal accidents on our roads, the great misuse and negligent use of our public roadways continue to be matters that greatly concern our government. And these are matters that we will continuously monitor very closely and make reforms when we think that it is in the public interest to do so. So recently, we implemented the e-ticketing system to address two types of offenses: speeding and non-wearing of seat belts. And I believe that the President himself has spoken on how successful this measure has been, though implemented in only recently. I have no doubt that when the statistics are properly analyzed, one will see a reduction in vehicular accidents and traffic accidents generally on our roadways because of the approach we have taken in relation to speeding and non-wearing of seat belts via the e-ticketing measure. But we have other reforms that are in the pipeline. We will review regulations and necessary statutory provisions relating to motor vehicle licenses, driver licenses for motor vehicles, in particular for different classes of vehicles like lorries, etc. We will also review provisions dealing with, we will add more offenses to ticketed offenses. So you will get motor vehicle, you will get tickets now, e-tickets, for a larger number of offenses. And of course, harsher penalties will be imposed for speeding, among other legislative reforms. But let me get back to the tinting issue. So, what the government plans to do is to bring consistency and uniformity and equity to the policy in relation to tints. So all vehicles will enjoy a 35% light penetration. So there is a scientific way of measuring the lightness or darkness of the tint. And manufacturers of motor vehicles use 35% when they manufacture vehicles, and that's called the manufacturer's tint. that will remain and that will apply to all vehicles. And then there will be a regime that will offer waiver in relation to high security categories of vehicles, high security vehicles, diplomats, and government officials, and other persons who are granted this waiver by the minister. And they can get this category of persons would qualify for a darker level of tint. And the regulations, the traffic regulations, will be adjusted to achieve that result. That is the position. And I don't understand why there is controversy. Well, not controversy, a lack of clarity. Now, you may disagree with the measure, but that is the measure. The measure is not unclear. So I wanted to draw a distinction between lack of clarity and whether you oppose or support the measure. Whether you oppose or support the measure is a different question. But I just want to offer clarity on what the measure is, as announced by my colleague, the Minister of Home Affairs. So let me look quickly at the comments. Look, I am looking at, please do not offer abusive comments and use indecent language in the comment section. I know that over 50,000 fake profiles have been unleashed on my page. I've asked my administrator to block many of them. I'm told that many of them have been blocked. But there are about 50,000 of fake profiles trolling my page. And I know from which direction they are coming, or they have come. But if you don't like what I say, then just don't look at the program. But please don't abuse other persons or me, or use indecent language or abusive language on the program in the comment section. This program is not about that. This program is to educate, and yes, it's political because I'm a politician. But I try to be as objective as I possibly can on this program. So, I know I'm looking at the comment section and I'm seeing how many of you want me to speak on extradition. What I will say at this stage is that the proceedings are ongoing in the magistrate's court. On the last occasion, well, on the 24th, of November, all the paperwork which we were waiting for from the US at that point in time was received and handed over to the defense by the lawyers representing the interest of the US government. The lawyers had received it through the Ministry of Home Affairs here, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sorry, by email. They received scanned copies and they printed it out and they handed it out to the defense. What the lawyers informed the court then is that when the hard copy comes of those very documents, they'll be given to the defense, but this is the identical bundle that were scanned and came by email. So they were given to the defense counsel on the 24th. And the lawyers for the US government informed the court and the defense that on the 28th of November, they will hand them the hard copy, the original hard copy of what they got on the 24th, which they were given on the 24th itself. But those were the scanned copies. That those identical documents will be handed to them that came manually through the diplomatic channels to the Foreign Affairs Ministry. The defense counsel said that on the 28th, they said on the 24th, that on the 28th, they will be making submissions about constitutionality of some process or lack of constitutionality of a process. That is what they said they will do on the 20th. They said on the 24th that on the 28th of November they will do that. On the 28th of November, they didn't do that. They were not prepared. They tried, I saw them in the press, trying to blame the prosecutors by saying that they were waiting for documents. They got the very documents, the very bundle, they got it since the 24th. And what they were given is the bundle that came manually. The bundle that they already had on the 24th. But this was the original bundle now. Not the scanned bundle that they got on the 24th. But rather than say that they were unprepared to make the submissions or applications which they claimed they were going to make, they tried to shift blame and say that the prosecution didn't give them all the documents. They had all the documents. Then they made an application for 2 weeks adjournment to make the same application about making constitutional objections and making some constitutional arguments, which they claimed they wanted to make from the time the matter started. Since the 3rd of November, they keep saying they wanted to make this, or the 2nd of November, the first time that the case came up. Since then, they're talking about this mysterious constitutional issues that they want to raise. They didn't raise it on the 24th. They said on the 24th they will raise it on the 28th. The 28th come, they refused. They didn't raise it again, asking for 2 more weeks to raise the same constitutional issues. The magistrate gave them the 5th to put whatever issues they want to raise into writing and submit it to the court. On the 5th, they have to do that. by the 5th of December. Then the magistrate granted the other side until the 8th of December to reply to whatever the defense submits on the 5th of December. So the prosecution only got 3 days to reply to whatever they are going to put in writing to the court on the 5th. And the prosecution must do so by the 8th. And I believe that on the 10th, the two parties will return to the court, I think, to present oral arguments, and the court will possibly rule. And depending on how the court rules, the prosecution has said that they are prepared to start the committal proceedings immediately on the 10th itself. And a committal proceedings is a very short process. It can be completed in 1 day, 2 days. It's a very short process. It's not a long, elongated procedure. But all of us heard. So the point I want to make is that due process is being accorded in accordance with the law and the Constitution of Guyana. And all facilities that are available obviously will be encouraged to be exploited. And then I saw a very strange statement being made by one of the fugitive offenders that the process is likely to take 5 years. Well, clearly, that demonstrates a particular state of mind and possibly is a direct disclosure of the defense strategy. But I heard the president make some very crucial remarks on that matter, and I endorse fully what the president said on this matter. We just completed another round of engagement at the CFATF conference in Barbados, the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force in Barbados. And as you would expect, this issue was raised, and Guyana had to answer in relation to these issues. I saw many persons making comments about the leader of the opposition not being appointed as yet. Well, you know that it's common ground that the responsibility to convene the meeting where that an election is to be done is that of the speaker. It's public knowledge that the speaker is out of the country. And it was indicated that the matter will be addressed when the speaker returns. Now, while some are expressing concerns about the delay and the Win Party itself and its members are concerned and have expressed concerns about the delay. I saw Stabrook News write an article, an editorial rather, lamenting the delay and contending that it does not bode well for the democratic process. There is no doubt that the leader of the opposition will be appointed, or rather elected. But I am not seeing the same type of concerns being expressed about Guyana having a leader of the opposition who is a fugitive offender and who is the subject of extradition proceedings and is indicted on serious charges of international crimes such as money laundering and mail fraud. While one may express the view that there is a delay, we live in a democratic society, and those who feel aggrieved by what they perceive as a delay are free to express that concern. But I believe the greater concern is, and speaking as Attorney General, my greater concern is the absence of equal lamentation about having in the Parliament of Guyana for the first time and having in the Parliament of the English-speaking Caribbean for the first time and possibly the English-speaking Commonwealth for the first time, a fugitive offender. And I expect the same type of lamentations to be expressed, but it is conspicuously absent. And I singled out the Stabrook News because in my respectful view, the Stabrook News has consistently taken a discernible slant in respect of matters concerning the Win political party. I want to say again that law-abiding citizens, decent-minded Guyanese, and those who are concerned about the integrity of our constitutional institutions of governance, such as the high institution of the Parliament of our country, should be concerned that there is not only sitting in that Parliament, but holding the post of opposition, a fugitive offender. That to me is an issue far more important than a delay in the election of the opposition leader. The election of the opposition leader will be corrected once the election is made. the stain and the international stigma that will attach to our parliamentary process, to the institutions of Guyana, by a fugitive offender not only sitting there but holding the post of opposition leader is far graver and will cost us permanent damage. And that issue, I think, ought to feature with greater prominence in our public debates and pronouncements. Of course, the 50,000 fake profilers will be unleashed upon me shortly, if they are not unleashed already, and all manner of insults and abuse I'll be subjected to. But if that is what it takes to speak on what is right and what is righteous, then so be it. Nobody wants to speak on these issues because they are afraid of the onslaught of ridicule to which they will be subject by the 50,000 fake profilers who will come on this same platform or are here right now cussing me non-stop. And they will say all manner of things. But what I can assure you, the legal process is taking its course and the law is being respected. And I, as Attorney General, must be free to express the concerns of the government on matters of law and matters of constitutionality and matters relating to the integrity of our constitutional institutions. And there is not much higher institution than the parliament of our country. So I thought that I will, look, let's start here. I'm just looking at Odessa Munsami. Y'all find over 60,000 US to pay for lawyers, then y'all come lying to us that is America that pay. Nobody. And y'all, and the cussing, you know, the whole word. S and F and so on. That's the kind of, if you go and touch this fella, Odessa Munsami, you will see there is nobody named Odessa Munsami. If you go on, you check that profile now, you will see that it's not a real person. There is an Odessa Primus, and there may be somebody named Odessa Munsami, but there is no person named Odessa Munsami. And you read what they, and this is the ignorance that you have to read about. 60,000 US to pay lawyers. Yes, those sums of money were approved to pay the lawyers who were hired by the government of Guyana to represent the interest of the United States government. I've said that 1,000,000 times, yet I'm accused of lying. Nobody, that's not a secret. It's public funds. But nobody wants, these same persons are quiet about $191 billion that the GRA said and assessed to have been siphoned off from the very people like Odessa Munsami. That is what the effect of it is. Odessa Munsami, 1 million US, 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 And all of them who are cussing me are the very ones who this money was taken from, or it's their money that was taken. But that's, I suppose, that's freedom of expression, that's freedom of political thought, and that's what the PPP fought for in this country. And we will continue to respect the rights of every Guyanese. All we are saying, that we hope that the rights are exercised intelligently. That's all we are saying. Many of you are asking me about the election fraud trials, and you keep blaming the government for the fact that these cases have not yet been concluded. Let me tell you, on behalf of the government, that we are equally disappointed that the cases are not yet completed. Like you, we feel that they should have been completed a long time ago with a particular outcome. But please understand that in the democracy in which we live and from which we all benefit, our government does not influence or control the processes of the judiciary. The constitution of our country and the doctrine of separation of powers insulate the judiciary, and properly so, from any form of governmental influence or control. And please understand that. I am repeatedly blamed for those charges not being yet concluded. I am not responsible. In fact, I will never attempt to influence any judicial or magisterial outcome in any proceedings in the legal system of our country. Never. And I have no authority to do so. So when you are frustrated, I share your frustrations. All I have been able to do on this program is to offer my criticism in relation to the delays and to update you on the progress made. And again, I am to inform you that several dates have been fixed during the month of February for those charges to continue to be heard. The important thing is that I believe that progress is being made. The trials are actually ongoing. The system may be slow, not maybe slow, the system is slow. But let us hope that the matters are concluded early in accordance with law, and the outcome is one that is supported by law. That's all I can say at this point in time. My operator is signaling to me that we have gone past the program time. I want to thank you very much for joining me in tonight's discussions. I think that we have covered some important issues. I hope that I provided some elucidation and clarification, and you are in a better position now in relation to the issues that we have discussed. Um, Share the program. I want as many persons as possible listening to the program to share it so that we have the widest possible audience and viewership. And fake profilers, don't occupy my page, go elsewhere. And my administrator is telling me to tell you that he's fed up of blocking you. So he will have to continue to block you. I don't deal with that part of the activities on the social media. Thank you very much. Have a blessed evening. May God bless you. And I'll see you next week. Thank you.